Welcome, friends. Thank you for joining me today. This is part 2 in making bread. If you missed part 1, there'll be a link, up here or over here. It'll be someplace, and certainly down below in the description where you can click and go watch part 1. This is now going to be part 2, and if you're interested in the recipe, there's also a link below where you can click and I'll take you to the website. You can fill out a little form and I'll give you the recipe to this wonderful sourdough bread. Let's just go right to it, shall we? Use our Amazon link down below. When you do, it helps us out and it doesn't cost you a penny more. And after using the link, save it to your bookmarks so you can have easy access to it in the future. Thank you.
Tomorrow.
All right, it's been about 12 hours since we put this up. And, ooh, would you look at that? It's risen some. So let's throw this out on the counter and take a look and see how our dough is doing. So we've got a board here that we're going to flour up. And take a look at this dough. It's risen some, which is good. It rests and it kind of sits out. And although it has risen some, it hasn't risen a whole lot. But in just a few moments, we're going to get it to rise more. So I'm going to dust this board with a little bit of flour. Spread it out nice and even. We don't want it to stick. Take this, my trusty spatula, and what we're going to do is we're going to dump this out onto here and let it rest and get kind of up to room temperature for the next 15 minutes or so, because we're going to get the bread pan ready, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let's just dump this out here, form it into a little ball. And there you go. Let's put this down. Seam side up for right now, and it is it's in pretty good shape. It's just about the consistency we want. All right, let's let this rest about 15 minutes, and in the meantime we'll get the bread pan ready. For this bake, the vessel we're going to use is just a regular 13-inch baking pan, and I'm going to spray it with some extra virgin olive oil. Now this particular olive oil has no additives or chemicals or propellant, just the oil, and it's under pressure, so you're not getting any of that other junk. And it's just olive oil, so I'll just do this. And for me, it's really nice and convenient. Just make sure it's all nicely sprayed, and it is. And I'm going to set this aside and go back over and throw our dough inside this bread pan. Now you do have a couple of options. After you've oiled it, you can always dust this. I don't, because I kind of like the crispiness that it puts on the crust just with the olive oil alone. But if you didn't like that, you could always dust this a little bit. It still makes it fall out really nice and neat, but it doesn't add any crispiness to the bread. Another option is to put this on a flat baking sheet of some sort, and then I use a spring pan that goes around it so it'll hold its shape. I've done that before, but today just a regular bread pan, and then we're going to end up covering this, but I use a second bread pan to cover it when I put it in the oven, but we'll get to that a little later. For right now, let's take and turn our dough around. It's had about 15 minutes to rest and kind of get up to room temperature. And then make sure that your seam will be at the bottom. Just like this. I'm going to put this right here. Make it into a ball. Pick it up. Plop it right on in there. That's all you got to do. Kind of even it out just a little bit. It is very, very fluffy right now, guys. Take a look at that. Looks very, very good. I'm going to cover this and we're going to let it rest at room temperature, which is about 75 degrees, for about 3 hours to 4 hours. So, like I said, make sure you plan ahead to make your bread. Let's set it over here to rise. Like I said, I'll take another bread pan, put it on top of there, and let's set our timer for 3 hours. Set my timer for 3 hours.
Your timer is set for 3 hours.
All right, we'll be back. Alrighty, folks. Timer went off. It's been about 4 hours for this particular weight. I had other things going on, so I let it go for about 4 hours. You probably don't want it to go much longer than that because then everything will start to fall. But let's take a look. Moment of truth. Look at that. It has risen. Yeah, it's come up quite a bit. Now, before you got to this point, make sure that you preheat your oven to 500 degrees. The actual baking temperature will be 450 degrees. You're going to preheat to 500 because as soon as you open up that oven, the temperature is going to drop, and you want a nice consistent heat in that oven right from the very, very beginning. So preheat 500, and 450 is your cooking temperature, and you're going to do that for 55 minutes. Now, before we throw this thing inside the oven, let's give it a little bit of dusting of flour. You want to put a little bit on the top, just like that. Oh, that's a little much, but that's not too bad. That's okay. There you go. Do that. Take your knife, moisten it, and then score it along the top, just like that. And the reason why you're going to do that is you want this thing to crack open. You want the heat to expand coming out the top, and it'll split and be absolutely beautiful. All right, so let me put this stuff away. I'm going to cover it with this pan, and I'm going to go over to the oven. Let's open up the oven. Woo, that is nice and hot. Put your pan in, center rack, right in the middle. And for you, whatever your most even space inside that oven is going to be. Now we're doing this for 55 minutes. Set your timer, and in 55 minutes we'll come back, and then we're going to do one more thing. All right, guys, can you believe it? All right, it's ready. Now it's really time. Let's get this thing out of here. It's been 55 minutes, gonna slide that out. What we want, would you look at that? All right, so I'm gonna stick this thermometer in there. We want somewhere between 200 and 210 degrees. Hopefully it's gonna be right where it needs to be. I'm actually gonna put it back in. Well, look at that, it's getting up to 200 pretty quickly there. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna slide it back in. I want a little more brown. I'm gonna put it in for 5 minutes, and we're gonna be there. All right. Put it in. I can hardly wait. It's time. All right. Let's get this thing out of the oven. Would you look at that, folks? Now that's a loaf of bread. Let's put it up here. There you go. Look at that. It is, oh my gosh, the sourdough smell, it's terrific. Take a whiff of that. All right, we'll let it cool, and then most importantly, we're gonna see how it tastes. Can you imagine it would go from this to this? Okay, it's cooled down a little bit. Look at that, comes right out of the pan. There's that loaf of bread. We're gonna let it cool down just a little bit more. It's still a bit warm, and then we're gonna, proof is gonna be in the pudding. We're gonna cut this up and see how it tastes. That's really good. If you want the recipe to this bread, there's a link down below. Click on it. You'll be taken to my website. You can fill out the little form saying, "Give me the recipe, please," and I'd be happy to do that for you. Thanks, guys. Let me know what you think. Leave comments down below. Do appreciate it. We'll see you next time, all right? This is the part they never show you on those cooking shows. It's all the cleanup.